That was a practice run.
Oh, okay. I thought this was-
Okay.
Hello, I'm Brian Moss.
And I'm Rashid Hida.
We're here at YOUCANIC, which is a website with information on how to do car maintenance on your vehicles. And it's a free source.
Yeah, so today what we're going to do here, we're going to go over a few questions that people have sent us, answer those, and then we're going to go over a few common problems in this particular vehicle that we have here. We actually have three of them. The S400 hybrid made by Mercedes-Benz. We're going to explain what really goes wrong with these hybrid systems.
So our first question is about a Volvo XC60 that has a drivability, has a message saying that the all-wheel drive is disengaged, service required. Right? So
Correct.
the question is the car drivable? In essence, the car is drivable. It should hopefully get you where you need to go, but it is drivable due to the fact that it's just saying that your all-wheel drive is disengaged because some sensor or module has gone bad. And what it will do when that module goes bad, it will divert the power to the rear wheels, and so then it will be a rear-wheel drive vehicle. So you will be able to drive, but you would want to be getting that checked at and replace it as soon as you can.
Yeah, and the other thing is that depending on what the fault code is, whatever is causing the error, the car might also go into limp mode, or transmission goes into safe mode. It's also called, where it limits the gears stuck in second gear, and then also limits, of course, the speed at like maximum 40 miles per hour. But there's no way of knowing if your car is going into limp mode without really knowing what the exact issue is. Because it could be the all-wheel drive module that goes bad, it could be an internal issue with the transfer case, it could even be something as simple as ABS wheel speed sensor. So it's really hard to tell, but in most cases you probably should still be able to drive it. You don't want to ignore that code though, and keep driving like that. Next, let's go. Land is saying he worked in the airbag system, disconnected wires for the airbag sensors, and now the airbag light stays on. He's trying to clear the light with a generic scanner, but he can't. Everything is connected the way it was before. What does he need to do?
Well, so everything has been reconnected. He's used a generic scanner, and the issue with the generic scanner is they're made to really read the ECU of the vehicle and to be able to find fault codes and the issues, and it can generally delete ECU codes, but for this case on a BMW, to read the codes that cover the airbags, you need to have a code reader that will be able to read those. There's more than one on the market, but you definitely need to find one that is able to read those specific codes in the BMW airbag faults.
Yeah, usually those scanners, they might be specific for BMW, but they can also be a scanner that just does airbag on all makes and models. Auto parts stores sell them. The one that they let you borrow for free, those ones usually cannot read and clear airbag module or airbag light, codes, related codes, but they usually sell them, or you can simply go online and buy one. But yeah, you just need the right scanner for that. The generic one is not going to cut it.
So we have another viewer has asked that he has a 2005 Chrysler Crossfire, and he's needing to buy some parts for this Chrysler Crossfire, right? You understand, Mercedes made the Crossfire, but he tried to buy parts from Mercedes and they wouldn't sell it to him. So there is a vehicle that he can buy parts from Mercedes that actually just bolt right onto that car because it's made by Mercedes. It just says Crossfire with the Chrysler badge on it, but everything is Mercedes. So Mercedes makes an SOK 320, and all the parts on the SOK 320, except for the body, basically, will be interchangeable with your Crossfire.
Yeah, so even like suspension parts, components, struts, tire rods, all that stuff, they're actually all the same. All you need to do is go online, find the 2004 Mercedes SLK 320, find the VIN number for that car. Any websites where where you find car listings will have an SLK 320. Get that VIN number and use that VIN number when you call a Mercedes dealership and say, hey, I need parts for this car. So they're going to look it up and they're going to sell you the parts for that 2004 Mercedes SLK. And then you can just put it right around the car. The only thing is, like you said, is fenders, taillights, headlights. Those are the only things that are different. Even the parts of the instrument cluster, they're actually the same. And on the dashboard, it's just that the quality, it's a little bit cheaper on the Crossfire, but you can still get the knobs and all that stuff from the SLK and put them on the Crossfire if you really want. All right, let's go to the next one.
I got a gear shift that is stuck on my 2002 C240. It won't go past the neutral unless I take my foot off the brake. And that's a Mercedes C240.
Oh, so yeah, usually with this, the most common problem why that happens is because the brake light switch is defective. Brake light switch is right above the brake pedal, and that's like a $25 part. You can buy that at a dealership or online. Replace that, and in most cases, that's going to take care of that issue. Now, if that doesn't, the next most likely issue is going to be the gear shift selector. The circuits inside, the parts inside can get defective, and then it prevents you from shifting that the gear selector. At that point, though, you might want to, before you replace the gear selector, you might want to read the codes on that, and then see what really is going on. You want to verify that. You don't want to replace that part without reading the codes. This is a 2002. The gear selector on that one, you can actually put a used one and it will work just fine. And newer ones, you might have to do some programming. It's funny because if you go to the dealership, they're going to tell you, oh, we need to program that gear selector to put it in and all that, but you can put a used one and it'll just work just fine. There's a procedure for setting the transmission adaptations, but even that, like if you drive the car for a few days, it'll adapt on its own. So yeah, you can put a used gear selector if you really have to. Okay, what's next?
Well, we got a 2010 Mercedes-Benz with the S400 hybrid.
One of these, basically.
One of these has been hasn't been running for 18 months. And he's asking what could be done.
Okay, so yeah, let's jump into these cars right here. So all these cars are S400 hybrids, 2010s, and what goes wrong with these cars, there's two things that go wrong. One is the hybrid battery, and the other one is this right here. It's called the power electronic module, and that is installed right on the side of the transmission, and it connects to an electric motor that is between the engine and the transmission. Now, that electric motor serves as the starter, so these cars don't have a starter. So if this goes bad, then the car won't start anymore. So half of the time that goes bad, half of the time this goes bad. Now there's an issue though, when you have a car like this that's sitting for like 18 months, let's say that goes bad first, this hybrid battery, if it wasn't really charged, or if you keep trying turning the ignition on and off, it can actually discharge to a point that's so critical or below 28% of the capacity, where, or even below, and then the computer will say, hey, your battery is critically low, that needs to be replaced. So this is a 2010. We actually bought this from an auction, a non-running vehicle. When the car came in, surprisingly enough, it had been to the dealership here in Maryland, Mercedes dealership, and it had all the paperwork, which we still have, by the way. and they had read the codes, and it says the diagnostic in there. It says that the AC compressor is defective, is interfering with the hybrid system, and that's why it's not starting. Now, the thing is that what they're saying is possible that if the AC compressor on these, because it's part of the hybrid system, if it fails, it can interfere, it can prevent the car from starting. But when we got these cars, looking at the codes, we thought, wait a second, it's not the AC compressor that's faulty, it's the power electronic module. So instead of going with the diagnostics that Mercedes had done, we went ahead and replaced the power electronic module, and that car started right up. So it ended up not being the AC compressor, it ended up being just the power electronic module on this one right here. This S400, this came from Connecticut. The owner actually had taken this to the Mercedes dealership because the car wouldn't start. And you can see right there is the box that had the power electronic module that belongs to this car. And after they had replaced that, the car still wouldn't start. So they told the customer the next issue is the hybrid battery. And so anyway, after they spent around close to $10,000 for replacing that part, and then when Mercedes dealership quoted them another $15,000 to replace the battery. So they sent this down and we diagnosed it, and sure enough, the hybrid battery also needed to get replaced, which we did. And this is one of those cases where if that module goes bad and you leave the car not running for a long time, you might end up with an issue with the hybrid battery.
And that's because there's a safety in the hybrid battery, right? Or you say like that it won't charge, it won't start the car if it's under a percentage?
Yeah, but you can turn on the ignition. There's a procedure that you can actually charge it. If you're between 15% and 28% charge on the hybrid battery, you can still charge it. You connect the charger over here, and you can connect the scanner to the car, and then force a boost mode, which basically you would go to the DC converter control unit, and there's actuations there. You can force the car, the 12 volt, to charge the high voltage system. Only if you're up between 28 and 15%, and as long as there's no other codes with the hybrid system. Because if there are, like that, you might not be able to start the charging process. But yeah, but this is what happens. Like you let the car sit for too long, and then this can eventually discharge so low that it might go, the battery might go bad. What really goes bad with these, there's a couple of things. There's cells, 35 cells inside them. One of them can go bad. There's a battery management system. It's right on top, and that battery management system for the battery can also like fail. But you know what's crazy on these ones? Mercedes programmed them so that you only have 200,000 on and off cycles for that battery. And it's not 200,000 cycles of engine starts. It actually counts it when you stop at the light.
Oh, but because this has a start-stop feature?
Yeah, it has start-stop. So if you do a parallel parking of these cars, the car will probably start and stop 3 times. So that's at least 3 counters, or 3, that number goes down 3. But if the car is actually if the electrical motor is requiring more current, that number can go down more than just 3, even though the car started 3 times, if that makes sense. So that number can decrease. So this right here only has 58,000 miles, and yeah, that battery is bad. That right there is 65,000 miles, 2010. We just purchased that, doesn't run, and that one has that exact issue where the battery also has reached the limit on how many has reached that limit of 200,000 cycles now.
And you can see how many you've been on that cycle through the diagnostic?
Yeah, you can see, and you can see one is 0. You might not have any other codes at all, but you might also see a couple other fault codes, let's say contractor issues, but the thing is that it's easy to see that okay, that battery has reached that counter of 0. And it's sad because I mean, these are, you know, they are 10-year-old, but they don't really have that many miles.
Yeah.
So,
But what you're saying is all things are together, being the AC system, this
Yeah.
module, that module, and they all feed with AC to keep them cool.
they're all in a loop. Yeah. Oh, yes. The AC comes here. Refrigerant comes here, goes through the battery, and comes back to cool down this.
And the same thing with this, right?
There's no AC. What comes through here is engine coolant, comes right through there and goes out on the other side. And that is what cools that one down. One thing that can really make this last a lot longer is disabling the auto start feature. You can do that through coding, and you can also do that also. There's modules on the market now that you can plug into the OBD2 port and turn off the auto start. And the reason why that does make this system last a lot longer, I would strongly recommend people to turn off the auto start is because too, every time you stop at the light, that is going to draw current from the battery, and it draws too many cycles, especially like on a 3-point parallel parking where it will start and stop. It heats up so much that the circuit board inside burns up. So if you turn that auto start off, then you're not going to have that issue. It's not going to put a call on the battery because it doesn't demand, you know, battery juice every time you stop or anything like that. And then the other thing is that if you turn off the auto start and stop, then what's that going to do? That counter 200,000 counters cycles on and off. You're not making that go down every time you stop at the light. Only thing I would say though is you wanna just follow your local laws, because I don't know, there could be countries where they don't want you to disable these kind of features for emission purposes and things of that nature. So you look into that before you disable the auto start and stop feature.
And everything we do here at YOUCANIC is to it's free service, but it's just what we've learned. You know, you'll still want to always check with all your local laws and make sure that you do what you can do.
We just received a question actually, and that is from Gabi, actually from Israel. They have a hybrid that's not starting, and they've sent a screenshot of the codes that they have. And what this is showing says the hardware monitoring function has detected fault in the control unit. So the hardware monitoring function is right here on top of it, and those do fail quite frequently. And once that do fail, it's time to replace that battery. Gabi, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that you can do. As also send a picture of the cells and the voltages. You can, if you have a good scanner, you can see like the voltage on each cell, and they have to be really within 0.1 volt of each other. So if you got a cell at 3.5 volts, you can't have cells at 3.3 or 3.2. All cells have to be like plus minus 0.1 volt charge. Otherwise, like it's not going to be able. You can't charge these batteries. I mean, these are dangerous. I mean, you can get injured. That's why. Even in dealership, there's like only limited people who work on these cars, are trained to work on them, and a lot of mechanics actually don't want to even touch these cars, just because there's just not that much information out there on how to repair them. So if you got any questions, any issues with this, just send us an email at support@youcanic.com. We need to see codes from the engine control unit, or we want to see codes from the DC to DC control unit, battery management system, and power electronic module. There's these 4 modules. You can read the codes. If your car is at the dealership, ask them for the codes. They might say no at first, but you can get them if you insist. And then you send those to us, and we'll give you an idea of what's going on, what most likely is the issue. If if you're on the East Coast, contact us. There's ways to replace this at a fraction of the dealership cost, really. So yeah, reach out to us. You can go to YOUCANIC contact page and send us an email. So that's it. Thank you for watching. See you at the next podcast.
Thank you.